Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to talk about Christ, light, and consciousness. So, Christ, light, and consciousness all symbolize the same thing. In the beginning, we see that the earth was void of form, chaotic, and dark. That is until God said, "Let there be light," making light the first the first principle of order. Later, we discover that Christ is the light in John's Gospel. Now, you may be asking, what the heck does that have to do with consciousness? So, what is the first principle of reality? What is the most basic foundation? What is the foundation of reality? I would say that foundation is consciousness. All living beings share it. We all have a level of awareness, a level of perception, a level of consciousness, in other words. Now, the opposite is also true. We all share this lack of perception on awareness and on consciousness. And that is what the darkness is, which God separates from the light. In that separation, we now discover the Antichrist, the opposite of Christ, the opposite of light, the opposite of consciousness, the opposite of the foundation, the upside down, the inverse. We then see the inverse of reality. Now, this is also expanded upon when God then makes a light for the day and a light for the night. But the light for the light for the but the but the light for the night is a lesser light. So the light for the day we know is the sun. The lesser light for the night we know is the moon. So all this light that's being brought to us, that's shining, originates from the sun. Now, that is not to say the initial light that God introduced into the world is the same thing as the sun. They are two separate things. That light predates. That light is consciousness. The light from the sun is another representation of that. It's just going down in fractals and morphing into something a little bit different with the same essence, but coming from the same source. So that's light from the sun, which gives external light to this reality, which gives external life to this reality in some degree. Obviously, God's the source of all, but I'm hoping you're following how I'm doing this here. I'm hoping I'm making sense. So the sun radiates its light, and that light is reflected off of the moon at night, which then the moon gives us the sun's light as a mirror. In this relationship, you then see Christ and Lucifer, or Jesus and Lucifer. And the reason I say that is because Jesus, Christ, is the source of all light, is the source of all life. Lucifer is requiring that light from Christ to exist, but is packaging it as his own. Prometheus does the same thing by stealing the fire from the gods and giving it to man. It's not his fire, it's the gods. And I think a good way that we can see this play out is through a story. Now, back in antiquity, far back, I'm talking so far back, this tribe that's traveling through the grasslands is hunter-gatherers. They hunt for their food and they gather, they forage for their food and move. They're continuously on the move. So they're going through this grassy area, walking through this, what appears to be desolate, absent of human life. just a bunch of vegetation, animals, etc., and a few pockets of wooded areas. So as they're coming out of one of these wooded areas, they see this orange light just radiating, just flickering. The tip of it is just flickering in the wind. It entices them. It's calling their names. They know not what it is. And so they cautiously approach it as they exit the tree line. All on edge, a little fearful, anxieties wrapped up in there, but they're excited as well. This is new. As they get closer to it, they realize it's off the ground, slightly hovering above the grass line, and radiating this warmth and comfort, inviting them to come closer. And as they approach, they realize there's nothing but the flame. There's no ashes, there's no coal, there's no wood, there's no sticks or anything like that to sustain the fire. It is a self-sustaining fire. And they just find this so miraculous. They have no clue what it is to begin with. And it is warm, comforting, and asking nothing of them. They decide to set up camp there. After a few days of setting up camp, they decide just to live there because they realize this fire is going on its own and it provides warmth and protection. So why not stay there? And it asks for nothing. It's giving all of this freely. Now, as time goes on, they get a little curious to try to figure out how this works, and so they start experimenting to create or replicate this fire. And they finally figure out, if you rub two stones together over some grass and some leaves and get a spark, they can get a spark. And that spark catches onto the leaves or tree, grass, whatever they have, and then begins to ignite. And so it catches and it begins to amber, So then they learn how to play with that and master it into a flame itself. But the key difference between that flame and the self-sustaining fire is that this flame is demanding something of them in order to exist. It is needing external resources. It is demanding energy from them in order to come to fruition, whereas the self-sustaining fire asks nothing and gives freely. And so eventually we then see this beef between the leader of that tribe who is trying to build up their little village here. They're growing and they find comfort here. They're solidifying where they are. They're just honing in. They're digging their roots in. But then other people are like, maybe we should branch out. Maybe we should spread this empire even more by using what we've learned from this self-sustaining fire and creating other little fires at places, and then we can branch out and create other villages and become stronger and stronger. But the leader of this tribe is having none of it, so then they have a rift. There's a split, a division, and then the people who have decided that using that fire, the replicated fire to build upon is the smart move to do. And so they do that. And they do it for years and years and years, using up so many resources. They're having to spend so much energy on keeping fire going. And then they're able to start, manipulating the fire to build equipment, to use, to melt down metals and build swords, etc. And this leads into them expanding so far out that now they are warring against other tribes who have discovered the same thing. And they're using that same tactic or they're using the same simulation of fire. And so this goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But that self-sustaining fire, even past the death of the tribes who originally found it and then went off and created their own little society based on these replicated fires, even past them, it's still going. And then the other thing is still true as well. You still have people fighting over this energy, fighting over this demanding flame. In this story here, You see Christ being the self-sustaining fire, asking nothing from man and giving everything to man. Whereas Lucifer, the Antichrist, and Satan are demanding your energy at all times. They're requiring you to feed into this system. And that's the Leviathan. That is Babylon. And all of this is depicted in Genesis, the first chapter. So, I hope that made sense. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, if you like what you hear, please like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. All right. Peace.